Welcome to the Intuitive Websites Internet Marketing Podcast, bringing you the country's top podcast on the subject of internet marketing. I'm your host, Glenn Thayer, and today we're going to discuss about how to get the most out of your website in a slow economy like what we're experiencing right now. And with me right now is the CEO of Intuitive Websites, Thomas Young. Tom, how can us as owners of our businesses and developers of our websites and on the web, what should we be doing to be able to maximize our time and energy and money to build our businesses on the web, especially in the economy right now?
Well, I think it's important to remember that internet marketing has some of the best ROI of any type of marketing. And this is the time to really look at your efforts online and really kind of tighten your belt, just like you do in other parts of your business. And to maybe think of about some things you're doing on the web that you didn't take as seriously before. Or, you know, there's a lot of websites out there, and people know this. They say, well, our website, it's really not where it needs to be. It's kind of adequate for now. Oh, we did something just to get something up online. Now's the time to rethink that, and it's time to really take it seriously. And the reason being is that you want every dollar that you spend on marketing to bring a return.
Now, is that talking more like dialing in content? Is that more what you're talking about? Because a lot of people, I think you just mentioned, people put up a website and say, I've got my website up just so we can have a web presence.
Right.
So what you're talking about is, okay, great, you have that web presence now. Now it's time to populate with content? Well, there's several things we'll talk about in the podcast today as far as what you can do. And I guess from an overall big picture standpoint, I want people to think about the fact that when you're running a business or marketing a business and the economy's tight and it's more difficult to get sales and that sort of thing, then you've got to look at the whole concept of time versus money. Well, we have people on staff. We can put their energy and resources toward marketing efforts, or we can put money into marketing. The nice thing about internet marketing is that once you have the skills, the basic skills, you don't need to put more money into it. You need to put time into it. And a lot of companies right now are looking at their staffing situation and they're saying, we need to get more return from our employees, especially in the marketing department, sales department, or we're going to have to make some changes because the cash flow is just not there. Well, one of the best things you can do with the staff manpower that you have is to get them involved in internet marketing. And yes, there's a whole slew of things they need to be doing, but it does begin with content, and it begins with organization of the website to drive leads and to drive sales. And then if you are going to spend money, because we're doing this time versus money thing, if you are going to spend money, you want to make sure that you're measuring the return for every dollar that you spend, whether it's online advertising or payments to outside vendors to come in and help you with your website, whatever you might be doing. And so in this kind of economy, I think it's important to say, hey, you know, how can we put our marketing staff, how can we put their time to the best use? And in this podcast today, let's go over a few ideas that they can do to really ramp up the website and get better returns. Well, what is one of the first things that, let's say, sales staff, what can they do to be able to help out the content situation, if you will?
Absolutely. Well, the focus of the content needs to be more into a direct response. Okay, we've talked about this in other podcasts where a lot of websites are fluff and marketing content and brochureware. We need to change that content to direct call to action. And the sales staff who are talking to customers, they should know what that content is like because they're having those conversations every day with customers. And the content that comes out of those conversations is what needs to fill the website. And this is content that gives people the nuts and bolts of what it means to work with you or to buy your product. That kind of thing will generate leads and will sell more products online.
Now, going back to some of the other podcasts that we have, and I know we talked about this in several podcasts, looking at it from a standpoint, there are people that are now putting their businesses online. Mm-hmm. I know a lot of people are getting laid off right now, and they say, well, this is a perfect time to start my own business. I can start an online business and compete. Some people don't really have a clue what content they should be putting up there.
Right.
Or salespeople, and they go, you know, I don't know. So it ends up being marketing fluff. I from what I'm hearing, it's more if you don't really know, you need to go revisit your customers and actually have that conversation saying, well, what do we do?
Yeah, you know, a good exercise to do, might be, look, we need to do something with the content on our site. It's just not doing it for us. Let's go talk to some customers and let's say, hey, Mr. Customer, if you were to write content for our website, how would you write it? What would you say about us? and then start taking notes and start developing outlines. If you're starting from scratch on a website, and in fact, sometimes there's a lot of websites out there so bad they really do need to start from scratch. Really think about a few major categories for content. The most important category is your immediate messaging. What does the site say on the homepage immediately when someone lands there? And our rule of thumb is that 10 out of 10 people should be able to see your homepage, understand what your company does, and understand how you bring value. And then from there, your content's gonna go into different areas. For example, you might get into the About Us area, so people can evaluate you, get to know your team, get to know who you are. You want to have photos with captions and that sort of thing. But then the second set of content is critical, and that's content that describes your services and your products. And think about writing the content from the benefit perspective, which is what is the end result of this service that you provide or the product you provide. Not so much what are the features of the product. Now, you do have to list the features, especially if it's product, dimensions and weight and all that. Right. But get into what does it mean to own this product? What does it mean to hire you for your services? And use that type of content.
Well, once again, stepping before we go too far on the benefits, it's really, really important to go back once again to your customers and find out what benefits do they get from your products? Because you could be putting benefits up there. You say, hey, our product will give you increased productivity. And that might be something that none of your clients get.
Yeah,
or something that they may not need.
That's a good point. Let's say you offer a service, and this is a proven service that you can go into a company and improve productivity by 30%. You've done it for years. That is a benefit. We improve productivity and have a history of doing this, and our average customer sees a 30% improvement in productivity. And then once you have that benefit-focused content, then the next step is a call to action. So our services can give you 30% increase in productivity. Click here to find out more.
Well, there's also another thing on that, especially with right now with the economy. This is the time that you want to get those testimonials from all the customers. Put those on your website. Because
That's right.
There's nothing better, speaking to that call to action, is you can say, our product does this. Boom. Right underneath there, you have a snippet of a testimonial from an actual client.
Absolutely.
They saved me 40% off my processing by doing that. And then right underneath that, you too can save like this client did. Click here.
Click here. And the call to action is so important, especially when the economy's tough, because in our client base right now, we're hearing from people that things are tougher, that it's harder to get sales. There are fewer leads and there's fewer direct sales. But traffic on the web has stayed pretty consistent. We're not seeing a huge decrease in traffic for most websites. So what's happening is conversions are going down. Call to actions tied to benefit-focused copy will increase conversions. And I think that this call to action also extends into any kind of outreach you're doing, like email. Now is the time more than ever to do email programs with specific call to actions. Whether it's discounting or promotions, or even getting to the extent to where your email is focused on value-added content like top 10 lists or top 5 lists that help people do their job better,
like
or add value.
Like a real estate agent saying, here's the top 5 things you can do right now to sell your home for more value.
Yeah, the top 5 things that homes are doing in a poor economy to get sold, or how to stage your home in a poor economy, whatever. But what the focus here is that it's value-added content, not superfluous brochure speak, and that on every email there's a call to action. Click here to learn more. Click here to get your discount. Click here to take a survey and get a discount. I mean, so there's a lot of things that in the email that really should drive that conversion. Because as I said, the traffic is still there. It's just people are slower to move because they need to see more value. The economy's tight. They want to know how they're going to spend their money.
Well, Tom, speaking on email and going back to that, as far as content versus sales copy, I know I have been seeing a lot of sales copy coming in. And those are people that I unsubscribe from immediately.
Yeah.
I have been finding that I'm starting to get barraged. And I know it's because of the state of the economy, where things are going. People are like, I need to get business. Let's send out the sales newsletter.
Right.
And I find for myself as a consumer, looking at those have no value.
Yes.
I was like, I don't want value. I want content that delivers value.
Absolutely.
Then when I see, this person is an expert in window washing, whatever it may be, they're giving me tips to keep my windows clean. Guess what? When I go, I need somebody to wash my windows, who am I going to call?
That's right. And another thing, too, is that the bottom line with email is that wasteful emails that have no value, get deleted or unsubscribed. Emails with value get read and get saved and get distributed to other people. So ask yourself this question: is our email just fluff and marketing content, or does it have specific value with a call to action? These things are so important in the down economy. I mean, we at Intuitive Websites, we have a philosophy of content distribution, and this podcast is an example of that. We get our message out there and we get it heard, and that drives our sales and drives our business. And right now, we're as busy as we've ever been, and the stock market's tanking. I mean, you would think that companies would say, let's hold off. But no, they're looking at us and they're going, hey, we've got to get our sales up. This is a smart way to do it. Let's hire these guys and get it done.
And so the web is probably the most cost-effective way to do it.
Absolutely. Cost-effective and the best way to reach so many people at such little cost.
Well, you're talking about distributing content around, and a really, really big factor that's coming into play in a lot of different areas is social networking.
Right.
And be able to utilize sites like Facebook, Twitter, MySpace, all of these to be able to generate additional business. Now, not from a standpoint of should I say, looking for sales. Hey, if you need somebody to sell your home, call me. I saw one of those on MySpace the other day. Somebody goes, I want to be your friend. And what they really wanted to do is be able to put listings in on my comment section. And I'm like, delete, sorry, not going to happen.
The whole idea of social networking has to happen organically. It doesn't happen because you want the business, and there's no quick fix to it. Social networking online is just like networking offline. You meet somebody and they give you a business card. You're going to call them the next day and hire them for a big project, or no? What you're going to do is you're going to get to know them. They're going to be part of your network. They're going to be part of who you see on a regular basis. And then when the opportunity comes up, then you might get a referral for them or hire them or something like that. Social networking is the same way. You've got to go in with the intent that I'm going to be a part of the network for what the intention of the network is, right? And then from that will come opportunities. But going into social networking and saying, hey, I just want to run ads, I just want to get the business, that's not going to happen. In fact, you're not going to really see that ever happen. I know that I've seen some information that YouTube is moving towards some advertising and that sort of thing. That's going to have weak returns. They're going to have weak returns on any of these social network websites that try to do ads. What they need to do is focus on the content, and also focus like on the business to business social networking, like LinkedIn and places like that.
It's interesting. I've been following a lot of following people on Twitter. I kind of feel like I'm stalking people, but it's actually been really beneficial. And for those of you who don't know what Twitter.com is, it's a microblog.
Microblog, right?
You have 140 characters that you can post, and that's maximum.
Right.
So it's not as much. I found a lot of people say, I'm eating a sandwich now. Right. I'm taking a shower. It's like, we really don't care about that. But give us something that of content. I'm following a few people. I think I'm following a total of maybe 17 or 18 people. I mean, I don't have a whole bunch of stuff going on Twitter. However, I'm able to actually look at those people and read what they're blogging about. I have the folks from the Da Vinci Institute that I'm following.
Absolutely,
and they have all the new stuff that's going out. They post links using TinyURL to say, here's something you want to see about the new submarine. Here's where it is. Or people saying, you want to get more bang for your buck. There's a teleseminar that's going on for this to increase with the economy. Here's where it is, and here's the information.
Yeah.
But it's more resource driven instead of it being a sales platform.
Absolutely. And that's what's going to happen with social networking. And it's kind of getting into this idea of what can you give away? What is it that you can give away that helps people that can later translate into doing business together? And that really is one of the things the internet can really do. It kind of greases the wheels of getting your content and information out there to a huge number of people at a low cost, but it's only as good as the value of the content.
Well, but there's a lot of companies too that have been putting the brakes on it. Companies and people themselves saying, well, I don't want to give away my content. My content is worth something. Right. People will pay for it. And what I have seen is I think that's completely incorrect.
It is. It's incorrect. It depends. It's incorrect if you don't have a brand to support the content.
Right. But if it's somebody who says, hey, I am a historian and I have all this information.
Yes.
But I want you to pay to access it. Well, as a historian, I can get all my books at the library and I can do all my research online that's there. All the university libraries have that.
Yeah.
What I want to know is what defines you as an expert historian?
Yeah. And you know what might happen is a paid lecture might end up being the way to make money, not from content on the internet. In fact, music is a great example of this. You know, back in the 70s and 80s, bands made all their money from their record deals. They get a record deal with the record company, they'd make a fortune. Well, that's not happening now.
Right.
The way they make money is from concert ticket sales and distribution of items.
And merchandise.
And so they've got to do the concerts to make a living, and then they'll sell their CDs, but they don't make the money from the record. That's the same case with the historian. He may not make the money from the content. Content's everywhere, but he might be able to do events, or he might write a book, or he might do a book on tape or something like that, and that's where you make the money.
That's where you're going to make it. It's funny you mentioned music. Nine Inch Nails had their latest album. I think it was released maybe 2 months ago. They made it available a couple months in advance online.
Online, yeah.
And you could go through and get the entire album for free.
Yeah.
Online. There was
Radiohead
did the same thing.
A thing where you bid for the record.
You could pay whatever you wanted.
You
logged onto their website and you paid what you felt the album was worth, and then you downloaded it.
And they found that people paid just a little bit less than what they would have paid in a record store, which is interesting because when you buy a CD in a record store, you've got all the markups.
Right.
So if you buy it direct from the band, you don't have to mark up. So it ended up being a fair market value. And I think that
they made a couple of $1 million off of that with it being.
They made a lot of money, but I don't think they're going to continue with it. There were some issues that came up, but the bottom line is that your content will drive value, and that'll drive conversions. And content's something you can do with your time. You know, you just sit down and write information.
Well, let's talk about some ways that people can utilize social networking to be able to get in there, because I'm sure that some of our listeners are going to be thinking, well, okay, that's great. I'm on MySpace. I'm on Facebook. I have all these things. So how do I make money?
Yeah, how do you make money? Well, it depends on what type of business you're in. I don't see a lot of opportunities for business to business transaction in the social networks. I do see opportunities for folks that are like realtors and maybe even accountants and people that provide personal services. I think they could do really well. And once again, that's going to be based on the content and the network that they have. And you know, when you think about this whole idea of what can you give away, it kind of ties into a really unique stat that's on websites that we think is real important. That's the idea of a bounce rate. If you have things that people want, like content you give away, then you have a lower bounce rate. If you have a lower bounce rate, then you have a better conversion rate. So in a troubled economy, you've got to be thinking about the bounce rate. That's a key indicator.
What are other things that you think that people can give away? I mean, so obviously, you know, we talked about social networking, so we got that. There are some places you can do business to business, and that would be LinkedIn. That would be a big place there.
Yes. In fact, they're the lead. I don't know if there's anyone that's even in second place with LinkedIn. They're like at the top.
And I think it's easier right now from looking at how many social networks I belong to. I think 5, and that's already 4 too many. Yeah. I mean, that's keeping LinkedIn. One great thing that I have found is to answer questions. People post questions.
Yes.
And they're by category. So if you're in the finance field, you're an expert in finance, start answering questions for people because they have legitimate questions. How do I finance my company in the credit crunch?
Absolutely.
Or you might be a banker that has some ideas.
Yeah, join the networking discussions and bring value to the table. Absolutely. Absolutely. You could do that in LinkedIn for business to business, and then even on places like MySpace in the social areas.
And I found business on LinkedIn by just answering questions.
Yeah.
And it's amazing to do that. MySpace is probably a little more business to consumer.
Yes.
And I think the same thing. But with Twitter is another way that I have found business to business picking up as well, where they start to see a pattern of experts being able to give relative content.
Yeah, absolutely.
Is what it's been. Well, folks, as you know, we end each of our podcasts with an action plan. So, Tom, what are the key actions for our listeners this week?
Well, it's time to sit back again and look at your planning and strategy for your website. This should be revisited, and we've talked about that in other podcasts. This is when the economy gets slow and you're tightening your belt. This is the time to look at your web marketing and do some planning and strategy again. It's also very important that you have ROI systems set up so you can measure the time and the money that you're putting into website marketing, and look at your site from the perspective of is our content adding value? And are there points of conversion? Are there places where people can interact and have a direct response with our company on the site? Those are really 3 or 4 of the things that really need to be focused on when the economy slows down.
And then really look for what you can give away. What can you be the expert on?
Absolutely, in your content. And connect that to a conversion point on your website.
Well, this has been the Intuitive Websites Internet Marketing Podcast. And for more information and to see all the available podcasts and much more, visit intuitivewebsites.com.